Welcome, beloved, to this edition of Hear, O Yah. Is I is or is I ain't your brother, Gidon ben Yashara'al. Where's all the Tyrons at? Hurry up and get them Tyrons. Where's Big Mama? Where's Pawpaw? Go out into the highways and the byways and bring all the kinfolk around the television set. Why? Because we have a special. That's right, a special program designed specifically with you in mind. But of course, the views and opinions expressed are those of me, a po-colored country boy by way of Israel, and the panelists that Yah has set. Today's title, it had to be re-altered because of our configurations on the generator back there, but the title actually is From Willie Lynch to Being Lynched. That's what it is right there. From Willie Lynch to Being Lynched. But before I get into the meat of this right here, let's go into some of the topics that are in the news. One of the elements that we've known that Master tells us that we don't need to remember where we came from. We don't need to remember the herbs, the sassafras, the ginger root, the yellow root, peppermint, all those things that Mama and them used to get for us when we had ailments. Also, Master said, you don't need to remember your history. Our history is good enough for you. As a matter of fact, we're not going to teach your history in our schools. But what we find in the pharmaceuticals as well as in education, that philosophy has failed us. Tylenol, the 8th recall of the year. Now the FDA launches a criminal investigation. Johnson & Johnson owns them and apologizes. The 8th, and they just now launching an investigation. You know, Master gonna take care of his. And also, for our children, I did hear one of the beloved family members on WAOK, one of the shows, talk about this particular issue, lightning and our children. When lightning and thunder is about, please do not run under a tree. Once again, 2 more children, cousins struck by lightning by running under a tree in Cobb County. The second group of children within 2 weeks. One died at the location, the other is in a coma at the hospital. We pray for their families and their loss. The Most High is on the move, and we've got to watch for our children, and guess what? America better be watching too. Also, we lost another warrior, Billy McKinney, the beautiful Cynthia McKinney's father, first police officer, first black cop, and other accolades in the city of Atlanta. He goes way back. Of course, we have a powerful representative of his and a close family friend, Brother Representative TYRON Brooks. And I'm sure he'll give us a few words about this legendary individual who we will miss greatly, Billy McKinney. Also, Hebrew sovereignty. This is the message and the information that I have been bringing to you for many years. And Yah has moved me and allowed me through the vision of our beautiful family to find a Hebrew group up in Tacoma, Washington. This group understands Hebrew sovereignty. They have gone to The Hague. They have been recognized among nations. They have the Hebrew flag. And what's on the Hebrew flag? The name of our Heavenly Father, Yah. So I have begun to communicate with these individuals. They have their international documents that we are signing, and we are getting legitimization paperwork in the document phase being processed. And I just again want to thank Representative TYRON Brooks for signing an act of state as a witness for me being a Hebrew Israelite. See, in this country, we have not been authenticated. Master will make you come to him to authenticate your child that you and a woman had, or a woman and her man had, but he has not authenticated us, which is why on the census report, you got about 5 or 6 designations that you can sign yourself to, but none of it turns us and points us to nation. So the Hebrew community website is the Kingdom of Yah of Hosts with an S. If you don't put the S in there, you won't get the website, and they are legitimized, they are documented, and they are international. And that's what I've been waiting for. Okay, let's read the scripture as we began to get into from Willie Lynch to being lynched. Because again, y'all know now, what did they say? Massa love killing. Killing is the way of life for Mr. Charlie. But the apologists say we should still follow him and work in his corrupt system to get equity and parity. It has not worked, and it ain't going to work, because every time we get close, Massa flipped the script on us. Let's go to the script, speaking of such, and see what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 6. I want to pick it up at verse 13 and see what the most, 13 through 25, and see what the Most High told his children would befall them if they did not follow his ways. And this is in the New Revised English, so I hope you can understand. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 13. Revere only Yah, your Elohim, and worship him alone, and swear by his name. Do not follow other gods, any gods of the people about you. For Yah, your El, is in the midst of, is an impassioned God. Lest the anger of Yah, your Elohim, blaze forth against you and wipe you off the face of the earth. Do not try Yah, your Elohim, as you did in Massah. Be sure to keep the commandments, decrees, and laws that Yah, your El, has enjoined unto you. Do that what is right and good in the sight of Yah, that it may go well with you, and do that you may be able to possess the good land that Yah, your El, promised on oath to your fathers, and that all your enemies may be driven out before you, as Yah has spoken. When in time come, your children ask you, what mean the decrees, laws, and rules of Yah, your Elohim, has enjoined unto you? You shall say to your children, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Yah freed us from Egypt with a mighty hand, and Yah wrought before our eyes marvelous and destructive signs and portents in Egypt against Pharaoh and all his household. And us he freed from there, that he might take us and give us the land that he had promised on oath to our fathers. Then Yah commanded us to observe all these laws, to revere Yah our El for our lasting good and for our survival, as is now the case. It will be therefore to our merit before Yah our Elohim to observe faithfully this whole instruction as he has commanded us. From Willie Lynch to being lynched. We're getting ready to go to our first break, but when we come back, Yah has assembled a powerful group of fighters. Because what we are commemorating is the lynching at the Moores Ford Bridge location in Monroe, Georgia, about 30 minutes from here. And that despicable crime is still being covered up by people who are presently living. But we got some people who are members of the family who are going to testify that we will not allow those family members' blood to go down in vain. And we will continue to remember and reenact this heinous crime. We'll come back and meet these powerful guests. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We know we were preparing for the Colors Network, and the commercials have to be put in, so that's part of the editing scenario. To my right, the panelist that Yah has set, a powerful brother that I've learned to love and respect his eloquence, articulation, his ability to matriculate among all levels of society, me at the low end, and all, of course, the rest of the people up there. It is my beloved brother, State Representative TYRON Brooks. Peace and blessings to you, beloved. My brother. Thank you. And to his right, we have another beautiful person, What is your name, my sister? I have you on the list here, but I need to know. Oh, is it Cheryl McCollin?
No.
It isn't then. What is your name?
I'm Hattie Lawson.
Hattie Lawson. Well, welcome
Lawson.
to the Hear O Yah program, Hattie. And you are Brother Robert? Robert Howard.
Right.
I got you. Welcome back to you, beloved.
Thank you.
And of course, to you, it is our beloved Dr. Richard COBBLE, a legacy and a reverend, and also a mighty political leader in this community. Welcome to the Hear O Yah program. Now, let me start off with you, my beloved brother. You know, as a chaplain of the common good, and we have to invoke the Dean of the Civil Rights Movement, Elder Joseph Lowry. Tell us about the Morris Ford Bridge lynchings and what you hope how do you hope to empower our community by continuing to reenact this event?
Well, Brother Gideon, thank you again. You allowed us to come on your show a year ago around this same time to talk about the Morris Ford Bridge lynchings, reenactment. And last year, of course, we had Senator Charles Steele and Mayor Babington and Robert Howard and others here. This year, we have Dr. Richard COBBLE, the president of Concerned Black Clergy at Metro Atlanta, Robert Howard, a civil rights activist from Walton, Ms. Hattie Lawson, who is the president of the Athens Area Human Relations Council. They're all partners in this work with the Georgia Association of Black Elected Officials. This is our 6th annual reenactment of the lynchings at the Morris Ford Bridge next Sunday, July 24th. Next Saturday, July 24th. The 25th is the day they were lynched. But we're doing the reenactment on Saturday because we don't want to interfere with the church programs and services on Sunday. So next Saturday, the 24th, thousands of people will converge on Walton County to demand the arrest and prosecution of those who are still living who were involved in the killing of the Malcolms and the Dorseys on July 25th, 1946. So that's why we're here today, to talk about the plans for the reenactment, to let the public know that we are determined to see closure through arrest and prosecution of the killers who are still living. That's why we forced the FBI and the GBI to come into Walton County and converge together, working on this case together. We want to thank Governor Roy Barnes for reopening the case in the year 2000 when he was still governor.
That's right.
Robert Howard and I started working on this together in 1968. Hosea Williams assigned me to Walton County as a young rookie working for SCLC. And I was introduced to this case by Mr. Dan Young, the man who buried the Malcolms and the Dorseys in 1946. That was my introduction to Mr. Dan Young. So we're going back to Monroe. We'll be at the First African Baptist Church next Saturday,
Beautiful
July 24th,
group. That's
12 noon.
Yes, sir.
And that's the first phase of the program at 12 noon. Then we have another phase at 2 o'clock. The timeline starts ticking on the reenactment at 4:30 p.m. And what we do is we don't march on this day. We ride through the county.
Okay.
And at the historic locations of each point, Robert Howard will narrate and educate the public as to what happened at each point across the county. We go to the home of Barney Hester, where Barney Hester and Roger Malcolm fought in the yard, and where Roger Malcolm won the fight. And then we'll go to
the Barney Hester and Roger Malcolm, are these white versus black?
Yeah, Roger Malcolm was a black man. Barney Hester was a white man. And Roger and Barney had a fight in the yard, and the fight was over Dorothy Malcolm, Roger's wife. Yes.
Look out now.
And,
the plot thickens.
So Roger was taken to the county jail and held for 11 days. And on the 11th day, Lord Harrison, a known Klansman, went down and bonded him out, and Dorothy just happened to be there, and he was going to take him back to the farm, but of course he took him to the bridge. Along the way, they picked up George and Mary Dorsey. And so you had 2 African-American couples in this car that was going to the farm supposedly, but it was diverted around to the Morris Ford Bridge, and that's where the Klan was waiting in a big mob, and that's where they were murdered on July 25th, 1946. So Robert will narrate all of that. We'll show you the scene at the jail where they're leaving the jail, going out in the car and driving away. And then, of course, we end up at the Morris Ford Bridge. That's the final scene, at the bridge, and you will see the car come up to the bridge, and you'll see the Klan drag George and Roger out, and then they'll drag Mae Murray and Dorothy out, and they'll take them down the little hill there to the river, and you'll see them actually murdered, beaten, shot, lynched, And you'll see the baby dissected out of Dorothy's womb. The little seven-month-old baby will be cut out of a womb. And Mr. Dan Young said the baby was 7 months, so we take his word for it. And so we walk you through all of that. This will be the 6th annual reenactment, and all of this has led to the passage of the Emmett Till bill, and you know, FBI agents opening up all these old cold cases across the South. So we're just thankful that you would allow us to come back on your show for the 2nd year to talk about our activity in Walton County.
My brother. Well, we've got to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to go to the rest of the panel.
Right.
I mean, that's where you and I connect. I'm a revolutionary. You are at heart. We connected some 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We're still fighting on opposites, but yet we're still on the same team.
Yeah, we're on the same team.
Let's go to break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I want to come to you as a mother. When you're intimately involved with this issue of the Moores Ford Bridge lynchings, when you talk to your children and when you tell them about America and you raise them up in this country and we've been indoctrinated in this system, what does this sore spot, this cancer in our history, tell you about being raised under white supremacy and oppression in America?
Well, not only do I tell my children, I allow my children to experience what I'm experiencing. They didn't get the full blunt of this blunt. I grew up around the early '60s, and I grew up in Eastern North Carolina. But Eastern North Carolina is no different from being here in Georgia. All the southern states, eastern states were the same. North Carolina, South Carolina, it doesn't matter. If you close your eyes, you are living under the same oppression.
That's right.
And sometimes I find myself here in Georgia seeing things that remind me of being home in North Carolina because there's no difference.
Right.
The racism is there, it exists. And my children grew up here in Georgia, but I lived 20 years in New York. So I also had that experience of knowing what it's like to live in the North as opposed to living in the South. Now, there's quite a difference, but after high school, I moved to New York.
Right.
But I never forgot that I grew up in a system where I watched my dad. I thank God for my dad.
Right.
My dad
Praise
God. I praise God for my dad. My dad was a civil rights activist when I was growing up.
That's right.
I can remember seeing him during the summer. Now, one thing my dad believed in was education.
Okay.
I have to tell you a little bit about him. He only had a 3rd grade education because he was not allowed to go to school because they had to work on the farm. He could read any material you put in front of him. He was gifted. He could read, write, build, do anything.
Yes.
You show him something you want, build a house, he could build houses without any form of education, but he could read anything you put in front of him. I saw him one summer, because we only worked during the summer times. We wanted to work, we were okay to work.
What was his name?
Leo Spruill.
All right.
Elder Leo Spruill.
Yes, ma'am.
And he would tell we worked on the farm, he would tell the people on the farm, my kids can work during the summer, but when school doors open, they are going to school. That was one thing he believed in, was education. During the summer months, they didn't want to pay us what they were paying the other people that worked the same job we were working.
That's right.
So he said my children would sit in the house before they be subjected to the conditions that we're living under. So even back in the early '60s, I saw him do these things, and it was a scary time.
Right.
Because we moved, and I'm an educator.
That's right.
I tell my students, I moved one year 3 to 4 times a year in the school system because my dad would not let us live under that oppression. He would move from house to house, place to place.
Wow.
And for the simple reason, he did not want us to experience the conditions that other people were living under. So now I use that as a springboard for what I do today. If my dad, who had the courage in the '60s to stand up when all this blatant racism was going on,
right.
Why am I here during this era with my own? I have 4 biological children. They're all grown. Youngest one is 27. And during this time that they were growing up, I exposed them to as much of this as I possibly could. I didn't want them to grow up in the city in New York thinking that this is what is happening here in New York when your sisters and brothers in the South are not getting these opportunities that you have. So in moving them to Georgia, they have experienced some of the things that I tried to teach them when they were living in the city.
Exactly.
And when I met, and the thing about it, since I've met Representative Brooks and Bobby Howard, they have also experienced what I've tried to explain to them because they are here with me, and I try to bring them to and expose them to all these happenings like this Moores Ford. My grandchildren now,
That's right.
I bring them to it. They get to see this firsthand. I give them literature about things that go on, racism, lynchings. I try to expose them, and the strange thing is, I went to school in North Carolina with some young people that moved to New York.
Right.
And I ran into some of these people, and they they had such an experience in North Carolina that they will not even return to visit. They will not even visit North Carolina.
Well, see, excuse me.
It's such a scar on their memory
Yes.
that they will not. And we have discussions, and I said, how can you not go back to your roots? How can you not go back to your root? That, I don't care what the experiences were. You have to face them.
That's right.
You can't put it in your backside of your memory and say that never existed.
That's right.
You're not going to fight a battle that way.
That's right.
And I think that's what keeps me fighting. When I saw some of my classmates, I'm riding the bus, they're in the fields.
That's right.
I'm going to school, they're staying home.
That's right.
Until after the crops are in.
Well, I was one of those children
Right.
in the field.
See, well,
I think God
that's why I guess I praise God for my dad who had during that time the drive and the will to say, I want better for my children.
Let me go to Brother Howard, because when we look at, and I want to ask you the question again, when we talk about such a heinous, and I work in Monroe to this day, right now I go down there, and when we talk about a heinous crime like this, and this isn't an isolated incident, Massa been killing us ever since we got off the boat,
Yes,
Bo.
right.
So when we look at that, how do you talk to your children about America and white supremacy and what it means to us as far as our lack of development in this country?
Well, talking to my children, I try to give them the truth of what American history is. You know, history, H-I-S, his, slide the S, S-T-O-R-Y, his story.
That's
what
right.
American history is. And we could only learn from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if we could possibly get justice out of what happened to those people in 1946, I think it would do more good than anything else that we could ever do.
Now, let me just, because I want you to follow up with that, because we're going to go to break, and when we come back from break, when we talk about baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet, and then we compare that with killing, lynching, and hangings and subjugation, I want you to give me your reflections on the difference. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back. Now, when we talked about America and what it has indoctrinated us with Walt Disney and movies and all these things, but yet on the underbelly of America is them killing us, miseducating us, and using us as a financial tool. When we talk about this issue in Monroe, what does that tell you about this country?
Well, what it tells us is that we can only learn from the truth, and only the truth will set us free. Understanding the lynching, you would have to understand what black people actually went through, and you know. And that's
or are we still going through it?
We're still going through it.
Okay.
Just got this systemic type racism that they're using, and it's taking out more blacks than the Klan did back during the day. But to learn what hate does to a person, you know, racism, we start with racism and what it does to a person. You know, once your mind, body, and soul is consumed by racism, then you got hate. Once your mind, body, and soul is consumed by hate, you know, then you got these type people that can go and do what they did down at the Moores Fort Bridge and walk off with the chest stuck out like they did something big, because this is the mentality of the South.
Now, I'm a racist, though, sir. I'm a racist, but I don't hate white folks. So are you saying that's just like saying marijuana leads to hard drugs? Is that necessarily the case?
You said it just right. That's what it leads to.
Okay.
And
so as a racist, then the next step for me is bigotry.
Bigotry, right.
All right.
You know, and that circle of fear that was placed around black people throughout the South was successful because of the lynchings, the beating that was done to our people.
That's right.
That was more lynching in Walton County than the Moores Fort lynching.
That's right.
All of the older people that I talk to say, if y'all really want to do something, get the FBI to come out here and look into these old abandoned wells. Because I remember when this person or that person disappeared, and he had some worries with the owner of the land, and when we come back to the field on Monday, they didn't show up. But we know what happened to them.
That's right.
And this happened in a lot of different cases, you know, but it was to enforce that circle of fear.
That's right.
You know, if you don't do what the boss man say do, or question the boss man, this is what will happen to you.
You know, Dr. Cobble, you've been a politically active individual, spiritually active, culturally active, socially active. You've just been active. And when we look at your activity, when we talk about America, this issue of supporting, voting for, cooperating with a rogue government that has come in and, you know, trying to promise us stolen property, the property they stole from the Indians. When we talk about truth, knowledge of self, we use a backdrop of youth violence. You know, we just had this public debate sponsored by the mayor on youth violence. We're getting ready to have another one next week. WAOK, you can go to WAOK.net or .com and find out the details. The mayor is sponsoring another conversation about youth violence. What do we tell our children about supporting a system that continues to kill us, hide lynchings of us, miseducate us, give us a God that supports their theology but not ours? How do we continue to support that?
Well, one of the main problems, and I certainly appreciate TYRON Brooks and you having me here, yes, one of the main problems, this country is in strong denial about the racism that exists throughout our land. It's in strong denial. In the educational system, the reason that they do not like for us to tell our story, how we got over, how we was able to move from point A to point Z, is because they do not want to include the heinous crime as it was committed in the Moores Ford Bridge. Once we make up our mind, we can go through all these violence and these different dynamics to talk about what ails us in our country. Let's talk about racism. That's on top of the line. Let's have an open conversation. And I can say this because I'm a military retiree. In 72 and 73, when the U.S. Army was having problems with drugs, they thought it was drugs. Mm-hmm. But when they began to investigate, they discovered that it was racism. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, from the lowest private to the top general, we had to take a time out where all the factions has to come together and talk about racism. We had to come and sit in the room. In fact, whenever we enter the room, we had to leave our rank at the door, okay, so that we could talk about our ills, talk about our likes and dislikes, and what we look forward to from each other. And as a result of that, we have one of the strongest armed forces. Not everything hasn't been worked out, but as a result of us talking about racism, we have one of the strongest armed forces in the world. And so if this country could be better, this country is too much divisiveness and too much hatred is going on in this country. And if we study history and study that of the Roman Empire, there's a possibility that we may be heading in the same direction as the great Roman Empire. But there's a possibility, there's some redemption in this if we become open and accept the fact that we have racism and we must talk about it.
Well, we're going to go to break, and when I come back, I want to ask you the question that Jeremiah Wright posed. He said, God bless America, or God damn America. I want to see what you have to say about that. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. We're going to open up the phones as well, 770-559-29. Oh, we're not ready for that? Okay, great. Thank you, thank you. And I just asked the question. Does God bless a country that continues to oppress, suppress the people that help it build its foundation and establish its laws and raise its children, being in the house of our mothers, being in their house, raising their children, and they turn back around and kill us, and from Vietnam to the First World War, to the Second World War rather, to Vietnam and all these other wars that we fought in, and we still have to fight for equal parity. Why do we have to continue to support
One of the things you mentioned, the great Jeremiah Wright. Jeremiah Wright was thrown under the bus.
Why?
Because this country, we have on our monies, our coins, in God we trust. But yet and still, we seem to believe because of dogma and doctrine, the system makes it possible for religious factions to go at each other's throat. With all the hate and divisiveness in this country, we ought to be able to have our religious, our spiritual leaders speaking up. Because if we understand the theology of God, God is love, God is inclusive, God is growth and development.
Is he recompensing?
And God is recompensing based on love.
That's right. That's right.
Inclusiveness.
That's right.
Growth and development. And that can be applied to any scripture, including not only the Christian scripture, but also the Islamic scripture.
But you didn't answer the question. God bless America,
God
bless
bless America if we follow those dictates. But however,
they ain't been following them so far.
If they have not been following, as I indicated before, if we studied the destruction of the great Roman Empire, then we will be heading, and we possibly can be heading in that direction.
You know, Representative Brooks, because I love you and I respect you, and of course we're going to be standing in the face of the cannon as well. You know, we want to bring Brother Bill Cannon in time. But under the Gold Dome, this is where they legislated us not even being human, 3/4 of a human. These are the people who are really the behind-the-scenes movers and shakers. You're down there with them. How do you represent us in a system of inequity? What motivates you to fight for us within that system, knowing that they don't have our best interest at heart?
Well, I was sent to the legislature by the people of this state to continue the civil rights activism that I was born into. Indoctrinated by Dr. King and Abernathy, Hosea Williams, Joseph Lowry, Dorothy Cotton, Rosa Parks, Septima Clark, my mother and father, my grandparents. So when Reverend Boone said to me, go to the Capitol, I thought he meant run an errand, go get some papers for me, go get some research, do some research, go see Jose, who was already there. And he said, no, we want you to serve. I said, well, who in the world would vote for me? He said, the people have already elected your daddy, Jose. They'll elect you. And then Dr. Ralph Abernathy, my boss, called me and he said, I think you ought to do it and we'll get behind you. Well, they sent me down, and what I've tried to do in the body politic is continue the activism, continue the movement. This Moores Ford Bridge case is just one part of it. There have been many other cases that we've worked on, many other issues that we've championed. So I don't see myself necessarily in contradiction of what this movement has meant and what the movement stands for. I see people like myself and John Lewis and others as activists within the system trying to bring about the changes that we so desire. And so what I try to do is make laws, better laws, the laws that have been adopted, like changing the flag, for instance, getting African-American law enforcement officers their pension, purging Jim Crow from our code and our statutory laws so that there would be no mention of Jim Crow and legal segregation in our codes and laws going forward for our children. You
forwarded a bill having to do with profiling as well, did you not?
We passed a racial profiling bill, banning it in 2004, passed the House, went to the Senate didn't act on it. We got to start up again next year. Senator Gloria Butler passed one in the year 2000, came to the House didn't act on it. So we're still working on the profiling. We've had both chambers of the Assembly to pass different racial profiling bills, but the other chamber never adopted the other one from the other chamber. So, I mean, it may sound complicated, but you got to get any legislation that becomes law, it's got to pass both chambers of your bicameral assemblies. Now, what I try to do in this Moores Ford Bridge lynching case is do what I think Dr. King and Abernathy and others would do if they were living, and that is what Robert Howard and I started in 1968, a partnership. We continue to educate the public that racism is still alive and well.
Exactly.
And that we're still being lynched with ropes around our necks, but also we're being lynched in the courtrooms. We also say that we're lynching ourselves. We're saying we're lynching ourselves. We lynch each other every day.
We do.
Through black on black crime.
That's right.
But when we
Willie
go to,
Lynch.
when we go, yeah, Willie Lynch, and Willie Lynch looks like us. He looks with white pigmentation.
Self-perpetuating.
Willie Lynch comes in all different categories and
It
shades
does.
and tones. So
It does.
when you come
agree.
to the Moores Ford Bridge reenactment next Saturday, and you hear Dr. Cobble, and you hear Bill Niger, and you hear Charles Steele, and all these, Ed DuBose, you will hear speeches that will reflect the ongoing movement. And the ongoing movement is in the streets, it's in the suites, it's making the laws, it's challenging the laws. We have to walk the picket lines, we have to lead the marches, but we have to demand justice. And that's why we say we cannot allow this Moores Ford Bridge lynching case to go away until these killers are behind bars. They have to be brought to the bar of justice. Otherwise, we are just as complicit as those who participated in the lynchings through our silence and inaction. That's why you got to be at First African Baptist Church next Saturday at 12 noon at 130 Tyler Street in downtown Monroe, which is right across from Church's Chicken. 12 noon.
Is there a number or something?
Oh, yeah, there are numbers.
Email?
There are emails. You can email me at, you can go to tyron.brooks at georgiahouse.gov, or you can go to madge.owens at my office also. The other numbers are 404-656-6372. That's my office. The cell number is 404-372-1894. And Concerned Black Clergy, Dr. Cobble, the leader, Reverend Abbott, loves supporting us. We will be having transportation lining up at 10 a.m. at 838 Cascade Road next Saturday morning in Southwest Atlanta as we motorcade from that location to Monroe, Georgia.
We're going to go to break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you the question. And then I'm going to ask everybody at this table the question. Why should we vote for folks that hate us? We're going to break. We'll be right back.
That's a good question.
All right, we're back. I'm going to start with you. And I know you you have a vested interest in staying. I mean, you get paid by the folks. So I know it. But why? Why should we vote for folks that have killed us, that blowed up bridges on us, that experimented on us as Tuskegee, that continue to disenfranchise us? Why do we tell our children to vote for that?
We should never vote for people who kill us. We should never vote for people who lynch us. We should never vote for people who work against us once they're in the body politic. We live in the United States of America. This is a republic. Everything we do connects back to voting. We wouldn't be on COMCAST today on this TV show if someone hadn't voted at the Federal Communications Commission to grant a license to this station to broadcast. Everything we do is tied to voting, our health care, education. You just simply cannot get away from voting. We have to vote for the right people who want to prosecute the killers involved in the Moores Ford Bridge lynching. So I say to you, I will never support someone who works against me or who votes against me. I will work for those who support me and support my people. So I'm very selective when I choose candidates to represent me at the federal, at the state, at the local level. I educated my son TYRON Jr., he was a little baby. I took him into the precinct and I let him hold up the little stylus, and I guided his little finger down the ballot. I taught him the importance of voting. I said, you have to vote for the right people as you grow up. So when he became 17 and a half at Northside, he said, Dad, I've registered, I'm going to vote in every election. But he's very selective in who he votes for. We just don't vote for people without knowing who they are and what they stand for. We vote for people who are going to work in our best interest.
See how smooth he is? That's why I didn't understand. Now let me ask you the same question. Why do we vote for people that hate us, that miseducate us, that take land from us, that don't allow our children to be educated at the same level that they are, and don't want to live around us? Why are you going to vote for that?
I think that we are the reason that we sometimes have to vote for those people because we don't vote. We have allowed those people to be there so that we have to vote for them. If you don't vote, you're going to get what you get. So you have to vote for them because we will not get out to put in our people when our people are just as good or better candidates, but we won't vote because we say that our vote doesn't count. So we as voters, I'm a registered voter and I vote, I'm going to vote for a candidate who I feel will best support the needs of what I need or what my people need. But to sit back and say, I don't vote because of, then you are allowing the people who are in power and the people who will vote to choose the people for you. So not voting at all, you're putting them in place. We also have to look among us and find capable people who can fill those positions. We have plenty of people who can fill those positions other than the people that don't look like us. But we have to make sure that those people that we put in place have the same philosophy and are going to help us, not hurt us. So just voting for someone because they look like me, that's not the way out either. Because I've seen some people, now I have to say this, you can't vote for someone because they look like me. That's not what voting is there for. Just because they look like me, you don't have their policy, you don't know which platform they're on, you don't know what they stand for. So you really have to do research on candidates and not just vote because they look like me.
Elder Howard, why in the world do we support people that hate us, that won't allow us to live in peace, that just like in Marietta, Jonesville, they decide to move, they could have all of Georgia, but they decided to put their Air Force base right on top of a established town that our people lived in. They just wanted to have peace. They're killing us, they lynching us. Do you vote for it?
No, you don't vote for it, but we as a people, we lived it. You know, we went through the chaos and the lynching and all of the murders and everything that's negative that can be done to a people have been done to us.
Exactly.
But if America is to be the true America, to be the America that we say that we are, you know, you still don't vote for people that you know is against you and hate you, you know. But all people are not bad. There are some good people out there in this world, and we're beginning to see more and more of those people come to the forefront. But there is no excuse for me as a black man to support or vote for anybody that's against me and hate me.
Dr. Cobble, as
Yes,
a
sir.
spiritual man, as a man that is within the network, you hooked up, why do we support people that would experiment on us?
We support folk, like you indicated, because of lack of knowledge, lack of education. For instance, I recognize how the game is played. The people must be aware. For instance, we've been indoctrinated with forums, political forums, where you have the candidates come down and talk and what have you. But we won't stop there. In the civil rights movement, we had mass meetings. We had rallies to educate people about the activities of our community. We're not doing it, but at Concerned Black Clergy of Metro Atlanta, we are doing it. And in fact, the Georgia primary is this July the 20th. I can't hardly wait till it's over. So before the dust settles, we're gonna be on the case to be able to educate the folk as to make sure that they don't put the wrong person in office. Doesn't matter if they look like us or they don't look like us. Are they going to do the people's business? For instance, you talk about lynching, and I appreciate Brother TYRON Brooks reenacting this heinous activities that took place back in 1946. Because we are still being lynched today.
Thank you.
One of the lynchings that's being lynched, when those people voted against, in Washington, voted against the extension of the unemployment checks, those folk ought to be thrown out of office, including the people who represented Georgia. The folk have to be educated to that and throw them out of office. There is another lynching going on, whereas credit scores is the instrument of the banking world that got us into this recession, and as a result of it, credit scores are being used to keep people from going to work. So you said the man and woman out there wants to go to work to make us some money to pay the bills, but the credit score has been used by the corporations to keep from hiring our people.
That's right.
It's mainly aimed at our folk, folk of the darker hue. It keeps from hiring us so that we can remain down and out like we want to. But there's a way that we can do this.
That's right.
Educate the folk. Have rallies. In other words, we are working with another organization, and I don't mind calling the name, because NAACP has been in the forefront lately because of the Tea Party thing. Right. But we have been working on developing a report card of all, especially in Georgia, of all the incumbents who's been in office. For instance, there's one incumbent that I asked about 7 months ago, no, about a year ago, go and change, see what we can do by credit scores. Credit scores, if you use gas marketers in Georgia, you have, the credit scores will be used against you, and if your credit score is low, it's going to force you to, their marketers to put you into the subprime marketing.
Right.
That has to be changed under the Gold Dome.
That's right.
So when the legislature meet in January, we have to get our folk, whoever we put in office, to change it. Now, the ones that don't do what we ask them to do, we watch them, keep a credit score, and then when the election comes, they vote them out of office.
We're getting ready to go to break, and when we come back, we're going to go to the phones. You know, the political process has not worked for us. We can continue to nurture that cow, but that cow there is dead. Let's go to break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Now, let's go to the phone, 770-559-2999. Thank you, beloved, for calling the Hear O Yah program. What is your name, question, or comment? Caller? Do we have that caller? We don't hear him in the studio? Caller, speak to us. That's you? We're not hearing them so far. If caller, do we still have that? Yes, go ahead.
Shalom.
Peace and blessings, Brother Sundown.
Shalom.
Yes.
Shalom, Brother Gilliam. This Brother Sundown in the house.
Shalom, beloved. I got a DVD for you.
Brother Tyrone Brooks, shalom. The sister, Brother Carver, and the other brother sitting by the sister. Greetings to all of you. Brother Tyrone Brooks.
Yes.
What do the word politics, I want the definition of politics, because my understanding of politics is crooked and corrupt. So no matter how much righteous you want to put in something that's crooked and corrupt, it will never be righteous. So the voting stuff, no matter how much we put these Negroes and these other white folks, somebody is corrupt and low down, and we still get nothing but the crumbs from the table. Now, so give me your definition of politics. Peace.
Thank you very kindly. Let me give out the website of Gabio. It's ga-gabeo.com. If you go to that website, you can see what our definition is in terms of our activism. We don't just talk it, we live it, we work it every day. We do believe in speaking, but we also believe in getting up and going and doing some work. We believe in praying, but after we pray, we believe that God wants us to get up and go do some work. And that's what we do. So go to that website and you'll see the real definition. The other thing I want to say is this. The reason Robert Howard and I are so passionate about this case is that we heard Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the last time we saw him alive, on March 21st, 1968, at New Zion Baptist Church in Macon, Georgia, on Burton Road now. We heard Dr. King say, when Ralph and I finish in Memphis with the sanitation workers strike, we will come to Monroe, Georgia to take up the Moores Ford Bridge lynching. That was March 21st, 1968. 2 weeks later, Dr. King was dead. He couldn't come. Abernathy came. Hosea Williams came. Joseph Lowry has come. Jesse Jackson has come. Charles Steele has come. Andrew Young. Dr. Richard Cobble. You name it. Rita Samuels. Helen Butler. Leaders from all around this country. Ed DuBose. Walter Butler. The reason we continue to do this is because we say we are an extension of Dr. King's agenda. It was on Dr. King's agenda. This Moores Ford Bridge case was high on his agenda, along with the Poor People's Campaign. We will not rest, we will not stop until these killers are brought to justice. And that's why we want you at the Moores Ford Bridge with us next Saturday. Come to the First African Baptist Church at 12 noon, see the kickoff pre-rally, then come and watch the actual reenactment unfold and see those die who were representing us at the bridge in 1946. Next Saturday at 12 noon.
Let's go back to the phone, 770-559-2999. Caller, okay. All right, now let's come back to this issue of our people and this calamity and how we began to have our children processed? Because again, we have to look at our children as our future. What are you all doing? And let me ask you, what are you doing with your children to bring them into this knowledge today about how we should address this type of hatred that continues to go? Because remember now, we had right here at Auburn Avenue in 1906, they burned and lynched and hung. And then in 1946, here with this, we came right back with the same thing. And then they, just about a year ago, they dragged this man to death in Texas. So, I mean, the killing hasn't stopped. So what do you tell the children?
Well, as I said, I try to give them as much research as I possibly can. We research it together, we talk about it, and when any opportunity comes about that they can be a part of something like this, we even had a bus to come from Athens, where I am, about 25 miles from Monroe. We have a bus that they can come down on and see and listen to people like Representative TYRON Brooks and these people who, and Bobby Howard, that they know that these things are real. It's not something that you read about, it's something that I'm telling you about, but you can actually be there, and if they're there enough times, they will have something to tell to their children.
What about women? What about women in your group? How are women dealing with this issue, and are they being involved? And do you see even white women that are outraged about this?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm the president of the Athens Area Human Relations Council, and we are a multicultural group. We focus on issues like this, and that's how I really wanted to get involved in I knew at a young age that I was going to do this. When I was growing up, and I knew this, you know, you always, when you're growing up, there's something beyond where you're living, and I always knew that I had to get beyond where I was. My surrounding was too small for me. I could feel this because my dad I have to say this, I was not a rebellious child, but the things that he was, I guess as some of my adults tell me now, I was beyond my years, as they call it.
Exactly.
Some of the ministers where I went to church, I see them now, they're older, and they said, do you still question us about things? I said, yeah, I'm still doing that. I'm always looking for the other thing, something more than what I see around me, and I'm never complacent about the things that are around me.
Well,
I'm always looking out for the other person.
Well, we're going to go back to the phones, and when I come back, I want to ask you, and I want to come to you, Dr. Cobble, because violence is something that we've been a peaceful people, we're loving people, but violence is being perpetrated on us at an epidemic rate, and our children being jailed. When we come back from the phone, I want you to address the issue of the violence that's being perpetrated on us and how we should respond. Thank you, beloved, for calling the Hear O Yah program. What is your name, question, or comment?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, how you doing, sir? Yes, I just wanted to ask each one of your panelists, do you all think that state exam, which is implemented every year for students to pass in the state of Georgia, do you think that's somewhat a form of institutionalized racism? Because you know, I've had one person in my family, and I've known several other people that have children in their family who have done fairly well in school or exceptionally well, but they are not able to graduate because they didn't pass that state exam. I just want to ask any one of your panelists, do you think that's a form of institutionalized racism? Thank you.
Who wants to handle that? That's an excellent question, because we know their exams are biased.
Well, let me
go ahead, Doctor.
share. The Civil War has been over 145 years. We are still fighting the Civil War all over this nation, but more so in the state of Georgia. Georgia is on the bottom of the totem pole, or let me put it on the bottom of the ladder when it comes to education in this state here. Georgia's education system is set up solely to keep black folk in their place.
Hello?
When the integration came into being, there was a lot of schools, private schools that were set up in Georgia, whereas a lot of the families in Georgia did not want to send their little white children to schools with black children.
Absolutely.
So they set up those private schools.
That's right.
Fast forward to this day and time, under the Gold Dome, they want to create the voucher system, whereas you can get a voucher and go to one of these schools, because what is happening, these individuals found out and discovered that the system, the private school system, is very expensive and they don't have the money to pay for it. So they're going to try to siphon it off public funding. By the way, the public school system got its start, and I'm using bad English, in the church.
That's right.
In fact, you said what concern black clergy, we have a educational committee. We have a juvenile justice committee where we get together and discuss solutions. In fact, the clergy, we believe that the religious base should be expanded, whereas our clergy, we're going to be meeting at the Cascade Club this coming Thursday, July the 22nd at 11:30, where we're asking clergy, preachers, to come together so that we can discuss these issues, how we can rattle the cages, and so we can educate our folk to let them know that God is love, God is inclusive, and God is growth and development.
You know, we're on the way out of the show, and I just want to thank this powerful, powerful panel. Because at the end of the day, the words of our Creator, Yah, is that hear, O Yah, and that's what we want Yah to do, hear our plea, that he will come to us and rescue us out of this position of oppression and white supremacy. The government and its entity have not been able to extricate us. As a matter of fact, it has turned the knobs up on our oppression. So we must look to our Creator. We must look to love. We must look to unity. And no matter what position a person has, if they want to work for the upliftment of our people, we need to work with them. Thank you again, Brother Tyrone.
Thank you, Brother Gideon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. We're out. Thank you. Great show. Great show.
Appreciate it, man.
Oh, appreciate you. Don't forget.
It sounds good, and we like to listen to it. However, they're seeping in messages that we're unaware of. So what we need to do is, like as Ms. Flanagan said, be ye transformed by the renewing of our mind, so that we will know the truth and walk it out.
He ain't gonna walk it out. I'm a little too old for that. Right? Okay. All right, what about you, DC? When we talk about Jay-Z, when we talk about Lil Wayne, when we talk about Common even, what are your thoughts about the type of rap that we see today, and what can we do to make it better?
Well, I figured that a lot of the music, you know what I'm saying, it's an act.
Okay.
A lot of what these people do is not their lifestyle. When you rap, well, what we call Christianity music or holy hip-hop, it has to be a part of your lifestyle. And what we see and what they do a lot of times, it's not a part of their lifestyle. It's just something that they put on a front for the audience.
That's right.
And we see it as if that's their lifestyle and, oh, they're living glamorous.
Right.
And we feel like that's how we need to be. That's how we have to act. When really that's not how they even act.
And
we feel that's how we have to act in order to be in their position.
Okay, well, let's ask you one more question. We're about on our way out. We're about out. What do you think about the future of rap?
Future of rap. Actually, there's a lot of artists coming up that's doing more positive things. Okay. And it's getting a better name for rap out there, period. It's more gospel blowing up. It's more positive music speaking to the young people or the older people. Okay. Because nowadays people are brainwashed thinking, oh, all rap music is negative. Right. Bad, talking about females, talking about drugs, talking about sex. When actually it's a lot of artists out there talking about positive things to help you out.
Well, we're on the way out. It's the conglomerates that are actually doing it to our children. It's not our children. They want to have uplifting music. They want it all to be positive for you. We hope to be back next week. See you and peace.